Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I got some great clips from Saul Marva. She is a teacher at Cornell University on blockchain, and I also Brian Brooks too is here. Him and Saul were talking back and forth here about digital assets, about regulation, about crypto, and so I'm going to play some of these clips. I'm going to give you my 2 cents on some of these things, and we'll go through this and we'll learn some stuff together because these are very important things that they're talking about here. We are heading to a place where we need global regulation. And these are the conversations that are happening right now behind the scenes that we do need to focus on.
Brian, could you just explain what exactly stablecoin is versus crypto, and maybe another 15 seconds on what CBDC is?
Just for definition, absolutely. I don't want to filibuster, but I'll just do it very quickly. So what a stablecoin is supposed to be.
Filibuster is when they want to have a vote on something and somebody just gets up and talks for 24 hours, 48 hours straight in Congress. People have done that. They just get up there and they talk for 24 hours straight to not vote on something. It's just interesting.
Okay. Is an internet payment instrument. So it's supposed to be like a prepaid card or like a traveler's check, right? So those instruments of earlier eras, they weren't cash, but they represented a claim on cash that existed somewhere. They were just easier to use because you could carry them around in your pocket. Prepaid card is much easier to carry than $100 in fives. So the concept is you have an instrument that can be immediately sent from one person to another with no need for an intermediary to clear that or to settle that transaction. So if I'm Venmoing you money, Venmo actually is just a set of instructions from my bank to your bank to transfer money. And as somebody pointed out, if you're on Zelle and I'm on Venmo, I can't send it to you, right? But it doesn't matter if you're on Gmail and I'm on Hotmail. I can still send you an email, right? Because the internet is interoperable.
This is so important, guys, because he's talking about being interoperable. Interoperability is the biggest thing for Web3 protocols, right? If you're, this is not investing advice, but if you are looking to get into a crypto project, you need to make sure it's interoperable with other projects. That is very important.
That's what a stablecoin is. It's an ability to send an instantly settled payment to you backed as a claim on dollars in the bank. Now, the issue with stablecoins is because we don't have a clear regulatory framework. When I was running the OCC, I did put out guidance on this, but there's no law yet. The issue is, what if it's not really backed by dollars in the bank? So then you have problems. And again, one of the things we'll talk about is how do you make stable coins stable?
And so guys, and there's a big problem right now, right, with Binance, right? So in 2018, Binance didn't fully have their BUSD fully collateralized. What does that mean? Currently, and this is the same problem with Tether, but currently when you have BUSDT, USDC, for every one token of value that is being taken and transferred, there needs to be the representation of a true dollar behind that. Let's just say it could be in physical money, it can be in treasury bills, which are usually what these things are backed by, but there needs to be one-to-one. So if you a billion USDT or BUSD, it needs to have $1 billion backing it up. And in 2018, Binance was not fully collateralized. In 2018, there was only 4 people that controlled the majority of USDT. So now you have BUSD, you have USDT, and you have USDC, and a lot of these are being looked into and looked at by regulators because they do think that they were not fully playing by whatever rules they've established in this. I'll let this continue.
And the last thing I'll just quickly say is a stablecoin point. Some people may have heard about the implosion of something called Terra a few weeks ago, right? This was called a stablecoin by crypto people, but it didn't meet any of the criteria I just described. There was no promise that there would be dollars available to redeem these stablecoins. It was a token that was related to another token, and if you exchange this token for that token at a given exchange rate, you could either get or not get a certain amount of value, and thus it was highly susceptible to a bank run, which would happen. So don't believe when someone calls something a stablecoin that it necessarily is a stablecoin. Your mental model should be if there are dollars in the bank. CBDC is just very quickly. The CBDC concept competes with the stablecoin concept. The idea is that we should have an internet dollar, a native, non-bank settled dollar, except only the government, only the Federal Reserve should be able to create it and destroy it, versus having American Express and Barclays both issue traveler's checks and have different feature sets and things, which we used to understand and like. The idea here is only the central bank will do that.
All right, so that was a great clip by Brian. There's a little bit longer of a clip too. They're also continuing to talk about issuing stablecoins and the banking system. So let's play this and I'll give you my 2 cents when I feel it's appropriate to pause and to talk to you, okay?
Other kinds of assets. So for example, if I could put my money into an interest earning bank account or if I could put my money into the stock market, there's no CRA at Merrill Lynch, right? But there is a CRA at Chase. And so at the margins, how can I make the dollar more useful if it sits in that account? I think that's one way of thinking about it. It is another reason, I would argue, that if you believe that stablecoin issuers should be banks, then you need to allow the stablecoin issuers to get bank charters and bring them into the system that has CRA obligations around it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Brian here. You need to bring stablecoin issuers and they need to be regulated banks because that's what they're doing, right? They're putting out value of something that's backed up by something else, and those entities need to be highly regulated. And the best way to do this is give them banking charters or have them apply for banking licenses and have them become fintech banks. And that way they can follow the rules that are applied to everyone else and everyone can be on the same playing field, okay?
Right now, Circle, okay, which is a private company that has for 18 months now had a bank charter application pending. Circle has an asset out there that has $54 billion of market cap, meaning $54 billion backed by bank deposits in various places. Yet Circle itself has no CRA obligation, right? The underlying banks where the money is held, those banks have their own obligations, but Circle itself does not. What is the issue with granting the Circle Bank Charter application and bringing this into the supervised system that in addition has all of these community reinvestment benefits? I would argue normalizing this activity will make it less scary. That's what I would argue.
Yep. Brian, he's so smart. I wish he was the one regulating the crypto space in America. I wish he was the one leading the charge. I wish they created their own. You have the SEC, you have the CFTC, you have FinCEN, you have all these different entities. They're all kind of fighting for who's going to be regulating the market. I do think there are some cryptos that are securities. I do think there are some that are commodities, but we need a way to figure that out without using a rule, the Howey test from the 30s. It's just pointless, right? This is new technology. We need a new way. And that could be called the Ripple test very soon, to be quite frank with you. Ooh, what you gonna say, love?
First, just quickly, the main reasons why people argue that stablecoin issuing should be confined to regulated banking system, in my view, there are a couple, right? One is if you want these instruments to be stable, right, you bring them inside the regulated and supervised sector because that sector, the banking sector, also has the FDIC insurance. In effect, this is how you stabilize the coin. However great Tether...
Okay. First of all, let's talk about this real quick because I don't agree with her at all. Your money isn't safe in the banks. If you've watched my video about is your money safe or is your bank safe, you'll know that most systemically important banks have loaned out way too much money, right? There's only 110, this is the end of 2021, there was $110 billion in FDIC insurance that could be claimed. Do you know how many deposits there were in the US to back up that? 19 trillion. So they can only cover, so if 19 trillion, if the banks all failed and started to go down tomorrow, right? We had a huge market crash, the housing market crash, the stock market crash, banks were like overwatering their positions. There would only be $110 billion that people could claim out of 19 trillion. That is a huge deficit, guys. They can only cover about 1.5% to 2%, barely, if that, of deposits. I think it's less than 1% actually. Yeah, because it would be, if you had 100 billion on 10 trillion, that would be 1%. So if you have 19 trillion, so you're less than 1% of the money that they would be able to recover. Go watch my video. I'll try to link it below. I'll tell Cass to link the Bank Not Safe. There's clips in there from November of 2022 where they talk about bail-ins. And I talk a lot about bail-ins in my community and how they can keep their money safe and out of the hands if something should happen to these banks. Let's continue.
Or any other stable coin may be in terms of being backed by the government bonds and bank deposits and whatnot. There is always that fear and concern, right, that maybe the collateralization is not enough or something else might go on. Whereas if you tell people, look, this particular stable coin, whatever, Sauli coin is issued now by Sauli Bank, that even though all that Sauli Bank does is simply issue this particular coin, doesn't do anything else, doesn't do any lending or whatever, but it's a bank, so this is a deposit and it's backed by the FDIC, then people will start treating it as effectively identical to sovereign money, to US dollar, safe. And people will stop monitoring what's going on there because we know it's all backed. So it's good to protect regular people who might be drawn to invest, to putting their money in stablecoin as opposed to traditional banks for whatever reasons, seeking maybe convenience or for cross-border, I don't know, movability and so on and so forth. So we want them to bring within that regulated perimeter because we want that coin to be stable. The second reason, typically, maybe it's not articulated always, but I think the second reason is that if we make it the law that only regulated chartered banks can issue stable coins, then it will make it practically difficult, if not impossible, for big tech companies like Amazon and Facebook and Apple to effectively become issuers of money, because the current law is such that if there is a regulated supervised chartered bank within a corporate structure, then no entity within that corporate structure, including the parent corporation, can engage in commercial activities. And running social media platform, for example, is a commercial activity, or running an e-commerce platform is a commercial activity. So the idea is that we will keep Amazon from the ability to issue the Amazon coin. And the reason for that is that if Amazon starts issuing Amazon coin, then basically that Amazon coin very easily will replace the US dollar as the primary purchasing power in the United States, simply because Amazon has such incredible market power. We all buy things from Amazon effectively.
And there it is, right? That is the reason that they have not issued Circle's banking license. That's the reason why they keep all of these fintech players at arm's length. They don't want them coming in and getting banking licenses. Not only it screws up JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and those guys, but now you're talking about if Amazon was able to create their own token and use that to facilitate a settlement inside of their own platform, right? You would maybe stop using whatever other thing that, your credit card, your ATM card, you would start using what was in Amazon. So that was a really great point there. That's what I wanted to play through. I love this conversation going back and forth. I'm going to make one more video with these videos in here. So please, if you want to stick around for those, look for parts 2. I'm going to let this play out because I hate to cut it with only 1:30 left. I'll let it play out. And if anything else comes up, I'll talk about it. But let me just let this play out because she hit it home right there. I love that. And if you missed it, just rewind it and listen to what she's saying.
So those are the two reasons typically that are professed for that purpose. My problem is that, you know, what a stablecoin issuer is, right? It's not just a bank. The stablecoin issuer can be characterized as a bank or as a money market fund, for example, right? That's basically what a lot of currently stablecoin issuers do when they invest the funds that they raise from their stablecoin purchasers into various securities, for example, right? But in some sense, if you look at the ecosystem within which that stablecoin moves, the stablecoin issuer is also functionally a central bank within that ecosystem. Because whatever that Tether Limited or Terraform Labs or whatever it is, in fact, Terraform Labs is a very clear example, right? Because they actually adopted the entire narrative of being a central bank for their own ecosystem, algorithmic or not, whatever it is. But that's the thing. Do we want to proliferate a chain of these separate ecosystems with each publicly backed bank also becoming effectively a little mini central bank within its own ecosystem? Do we have the regulatory approach for that? And I don't think we do. So before we talk about CRA, for example, we need to just start to think about how the principle of the thing shifts when we start thinking about stablecoins vis-a-vis deposits that are denominated in US dollars and also backed by the FDIC and whatnot. Because I think the shift is much more fundamental and we are not yet sure what the implications are. And until we're sure, I am about condoning that notion that we need to put the FDIC insurance straightforwardly behind the stable coins by making it all chartered and regulated.
Could you imagine that though? This is my last thoughts here. The FDIC is already underfunded by trillions of dollars. And if you want to add 50 billion here for USDT, if you want to add another 60 billion for USDC and another whatever 60 billion for BUSD, whatever other stable coins there are, we're just going to be more underwater in the long run with FDIC. I think they need a new plan to how they're going to interact with all of this stuff, how crypto fintechs will be able to work in the banking infrastructure and move all of this along together, guys. It's just an exciting times. There's so many different viewpoints coming. Miss dropped some heavy knowledge on there, and Mr. Brian Books too, guys. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe, share with somebody, and peace out, guys.